Okay, here is exercise 2.28, and it says, we've got a major road, so I'll do two lines and then this other, and you're at a stop, and there are gaps, I guess, between cars, and it says that 65 out of 100 are good. Okay. And so then a car arrives and they're asking A, what's the probability that first gap is not acceptable? Okay. Well, so, you're just arriving in there somewhere. So it looks like if the gaps are independent, now, does it ever say that at a major and minor intersection, street intersection, one finds that out of every 100 gaps on the major street, 65 are acceptable, that is, large enough for a car arriving on the minor street to cross. When a vehicle arrives on the minor street, what is the problem? So I'm going to go with any given gap, okay, the gaps are independent of each other. Now, why am I guessing? Because I don't think I'd have a clue offhand how to go about this with this much information if all of a sudden they said they're dependent on each other. Well, dependent how? Good question. So I think those gaps are independent, which means I'm just looking at, here's a gap, there's 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 a gap. So what's the likelihood that this gap is fine? I guess it would be 0.65. And so, because 65 out of 100 are good, and what's the gap that it's not good? Well, 0.35, 1 minus that. And so I believe here the answer is the 1 minus 0.65 equal 0.35. Okay, but I'm using that idea that the gaps are independent, really, because otherwise I don't know, because I just arrive, I don't know which gap it is, and so forth. So really underlying this, we are assuming that those gaps are independent.